Listen, in a world of economic uncertainty, safeguarding your retirement savings is more important than ever. Gold is a trusted store of value, providing stability for centuries. With a gold IRA from Noble Gold Investments, you can protect your financial future with the enduring power of precious metals. Vote for the timeless safety of gold and silver in 2024 and get up to 10 1-ounce silver Trump coins or a 10-ounce silver American flag bar with a qualifying account. Noble Gold Investments, your partner in financial peace of mind in 2024.
And as a woman, there's a balance to be struck between being tough and being a bitch. Turn that off.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right? It's no longer in a physical place.
All that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, that is called Bidenomics.
Which is why we will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on to galvanize global action.
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. and you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah. I said to the congressman, I didn't know he could preach like that.
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets, and let me tell you, as they say, they not like us.
Do I see people testifying? Can I get a witness?
What we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because you are Indian.
Yes.
So we're both Indian, but actually we're both South Indian.
Yeah. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday, August 6th, 2024. And the inspired mantra remains, we're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. It's good to see you all. And we're very inspired by the VP, aren't we? I mean, she's just, Jesus Christ. Oh, my Lord. Well, you know, just she goes to show how much of a simulation we truly live in. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Of course, in a live chat, dear friends. Charlotte, thank you for your contribution. So good to see you. I see Christabella is here today. Who else is here? The Great Reset. Of course, Christine's in a live chat. Ronnie is taking on her new position as moderator. Thank you, Ronnie. Really appreciate it. By the way, Ronnie, please send us an email after the show. We have something for you. And thank you all so much, everybody else. Just so good to see you. Okay. I got to slow down a little bit today. As a matter of fact, Frank, Jacob, and I were messaging this morning. It was early here and it was late. You know, it was not as early in Europe, Germany, where he's at. And he said, John, do you ever sleep? And I was like, no, but don't tell anyone. It was just a joke, but I want to slow down a little bit. I want to welcome a lot of new viewers that have joined us recently. Thank you for joining us. It's an honor to have you. And rewind a little bit. This year's been very intense so far. So I want everyone to just take a deep breath and consider how far we've traveled and how far we yet have to travel. And a lot of people that are not maybe um, out there in the matrix world. There, a lot of those people that I want to talk about a little bit more today, you won't find them as much in the regular places, in the usual places. Sometimes, sure, but there's a reason why people have begun really keeping more to themselves, keeping in smaller communities, seeking out their tribe, so to speak. All of this is sort of part of the plan. A lot of people are simply reaching a point of no return. And I want to explain what that means. Also, over the last months, we've received so many messages and emails, a lot of them positive and just people that share their stories, but a lot of them are like, hey dude, this whole simulation thing, the matrix thing, and you're kind of losing yourself in that, and this is all, it's not good, and people shouldn't believe that, and it's wrong. And um I actually think that, thank you, Charlotte, the other Charlotte, thank you so much for your contribution. I actually think that there's many who have crossed the Rubicon, and at a certain point you can return from that. In my own journey, I think I've crossed quite a few Rubicons, and I always thought, well, that's the one. Well, there is no the one. There's always more to know. But what that really means is, and this is why I want to invite you in for this conversation today, is what it really means is that there's a willingness inside of us to transcend almost everything, if not everything that we've been taught, everything that we believed before, everything that we've been indoctrinated with, everything that the world presented as reality and truth. And that can be a lonely place to be. I'm not going to lie to you. That can be a very lonely place to be, because it's not just that you grow out of old relationships, is that you become completely unrelatable to so many others. It's the more that you're on this journey and the farther that you cross this point of no return, the more you become strange and weird to those who are either not able or willing to take such a step. And it can get pretty lonely out here. So this is why I think part of what we're doing through these times is hopefully also connecting people and making it visible that there are so many actually out there. And I'm blown away by the level of consciousness that we're often seeing in these messages and comments, of expansion, of knowledge, of wisdom. I think it's absolutely amazing, right? Which points to a severe inner journey, really. But we are also at the same time exposed to an incredible amount of curated reality. So our reality, this construct that we live in, has always been curated, which means that the vast majority of people perceives it to be random, right? Random things that happen, coincidences, and just a linear progression of events. And because they don't see the connection, they don't even ask the bigger questions anymore. When what would be most important for any endeavor that we want to go on in the future, for anything that we want to create, for anything that we want to experience, it is to ask the bigger questions. But there's an entire curated reality that's in the way of those bigger questions. What are those bigger questions? Let's look at a few together. For example, who are we? Why are we here? What is this reality? Where do we come from? What is the meaning of life? These are not questions that are new. These are questions that humans in this realm have pondered for eons. But these are questions that everyday matrix people, if they hear them, they spend about 10 seconds on them dismissing them. I don't have time for this. I have to work. I have to put food on a table. I got to watch the game, the new season of whatever is on. Whatever it is, whatever things are in the way. At the same time, they're wondering and pondering on their life problems and potential solutions. They wonder about the economy, about politics, who to vote for, who's going to fix this mess, and what's going to make their life more comfortable, who's going to fix inflation. But ultimately, nothing ever really fundamentally changes in the matrix society, because it's not supposed to. Because the curated reality, the things that all this space is filled in with, it's designed to keep you from asking those questions and from discovering the answers. One of the most common answers to those questions is, well, we can't know. If you really want to dig deeper, here's religion A or religion B or religion C. That's what they do. Or here's philosophy. That's what they do. But both religion and philosophy, to the greatest extent, exist only within a certain framework. They have to be boxed in by a certain framework in order to exist in matrix society, in the matrix world. But you and I and millions of people, we've crossed this point of no return. And we are, to a certain degree, still exposed to this curated reality that tries at every turn and every corner to pull us back in. What does it pull back in? Our consciousness. That's what it wants to pull back in. See, what this matrix reality fears the most, and its masters, is that your consciousness roams freely in an unrestricted way, unburdened, so to speak, as our very eloquent Madam Vice Resident loves to say, unburdened. So let's look a little bit at the curated reality as it has been described and accurately predicted by people that had not just insight knowledge, but foresight and probably true historic knowledge. Let's look at a few of those things that keep people and their consciousness either boxed in or that ropes them back in when they roam out too far. I want to read from a few paragraphs and a few quotes here. This is one that probably will speak to you deeply. In an ever-changing, incomprehensible world, the masses had reached the point where they would at the same time believe everything and nothing, think that everything was possible and that nothing was true. The totalitarian mass leaders based their propaganda on the correct psychological assumption that under such conditions, one could make people believe the most fantastic statements one day and trust that if the next day they were given irrefutable proof of their falsehood, they would take refuge in cynicism instead of deserting the leaders who had lied to them. They would protest that they had known all along that the statement was a lie and would admire the leaders for their superior tactical cleverness. And this is from Hannah Arendt, The Origins of Totalitarianism. Now, this I think it's an eerily accurate description of the reality that we're experiencing, and which is a constant push and pull between narratives, a push and pull between hope and fear, a push and pull between one falsehood and the other falsehood. One might include a little more truth than the other, but they're both false nonetheless. I think this was, when I first read this, it was actually, it hit hard because I could think of a million examples from our current reality that fit that. And this is, of course, not, and here we have to get really honest with ourselves. This isn't just aimed at the world of politics or mainstream. This is happening in all aspects of society. This is happening to almost everyone. And the reason why we need to become aware of it is because the biggest trap is the one that you don't see even after you step into it, right? That's the best trap. When you don't notice that your consciousness has just been boxed in a much, much bigger box, but still boxed in. So let's look a little further at the curated reality all around us. This concern with the basic condition of freedom, the absence of physical constraint, is unquestionably necessary, but is not at all that is necessary. It is perfectly possible for a man to be out of prison and yet not free, to be under no physical constraint and yet to be a psychological captive, compelled to think, feel, and act as the representatives of the national state or of some private interest within the nation want him to think, feel, and act. Okay? This is from Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. Most of you have either read the book or heard about it. It used to be, I don't know if it's still in the curriculum, but it used to be. So, like I said earlier, the biggest kind of prison is the one that you cannot see and that you actually believe to be freedom. So, in order to break free from that, we have to be willing to constantly question ourselves, just like we question everything else. Question whether we are still giving our consciousness permission to explore, to expand, or whether we are restricted by attachments to specific beliefs. And we're going to get a little deeper into that, how that spiritually influences us in a moment here. A few more really, really to the point quotes. One believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them. And you will have, especially from religious people that are, a religious construct cannot be something that you simply know or inherently discover by living life. A religious construct has so many little rules and sub-rules, and it's so many written down facts that are not discoverable in nature or in natural experience. They have to be learned, they have to be taught, they have to be indoctrinated. So the mere fact that people say that religion, scripture is truth, to me I've always had the problem that truth and the way that it is being taught is not discoverable for people outside of the religious doctrine. So if they don't have access to that Bible, and especially to how it's been interpreted or whatever, or a Bhagavad Gita or a Quran or the Talmud or whatever, right? If you don't have access to that, you can't discover those rules and those prescriptions. So you have to be conditioned to believe those things by being taught those things. But because it happens without an explanation, because we're not told, listen, here's what I'm going to do. Over the next 10 years, I'm going to every day put thoughts into your head that I want you to accept as truth. Nobody says that. Nobody says, no teacher ever sits you down and says, here's how we're going to do it through repetition. And because I'm putting myself in the position of an authority figure, and I'm letting you know that I am an authority figure who knows much better than you, and I'm letting you know that you need to learn and repeat what I teach you so you can be smart, so you can be successful by doing all of this. No teacher says that. No teacher has ever said that. They're simply using the program that they have been programmed with without questioning it and transporting it to the next generation. It is a perpetual programming system that functions on beliefs alone. Because you learn tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of facts throughout your academic or your school career, doesn't matter, hundreds of thousands of facts of which you have checked how many? How often have you asked, is this actually true? No, because the chain of authority tells you, well, it's in this book. well, this book was written by intelligent people. These are historians. They're simply presenting the facts. When it is all a belief system. It's all a belief system. Until you go and verify something, until you go and do your own research, until you actually go and discover something for yourself, it is only a belief. Let's look a little further. God isn't compatible with machinery and scientific medicine and universal happiness. You must make a choice. Our civilization has chosen machinery and medicine and happiness. This is why when people say, I'm here to be happy, I'm here to have fun, I know what they're trying to say, but I also know that they're stuck in the level of the programming, because happiness and fun are not authentic parts of the experience. There's something else, something much more deeper. Okay, this is sort of the imitation game. But what does it mean God isn't compatible with machinery and scientific medicine and universal happiness? Well, these are all disciplines, thought boxes that have been detached from creation. None of these disciplines look at creation as the fundamental principle of everything. Source consciousness. You can call it what you want. God, water, paint, sky. It doesn't matter what you call it. It is the author, the originator of everything. Ultimately, of course, even the most inverted state of consciousness that rules this realm, ultimately that inverted state of consciousness was not inverted. It was in a harmonious state, and it ultimately originated from prime consciousness. But we have, maybe not we, but we are living in a world, in a construct that is detached from that. It imitates creation poorly, and it has its own rules, which when we know them, it makes existence here much more successful for us if we know those rules and know how to play by them. Let's look a little deeper at our curated reality. If you want to keep a secret, this is a big one, you must also hide it from yourself. This one is so big that it's almost impossible to fully grasp. But what that means is that the current entities in leadership positions that were installed to be leaders over this realm have also forgotten about a lot of the truths that are actually at play, which is the most successful form of control, is when controllers themselves don't know better. At that point in time, they don't know better. And we have sort of had this notion that people that are famous, a lot of us growing up, especially in the previous millennium, we've had this notion that people that are famous and in the public eye, they know so much, they must know all the secrets. Well, if you meet enough of them, you realize they don't. So this is a sort of a principle that these secrets are so well hidden about who we are, the answers to the big questions, that even those who still seek to control us don't know the answers. That's a big one, actually. Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. Another huge source of a dissonance, a disharmony in human beings is what we call cognitive dissonance, right? This is doublethink. It's when you have two concepts in your mind that completely contradict each other, but you accept both of them somehow as true. Humans do this in a sense to not lose their minds in relation to the rest of the population. So they can exist in their mind in both worlds and believe this to be true and that to be true, although they're mutually exclusive, which is also the source of tremendous suffering because your spirit doesn't know how to deal with cognitive dissonance or doublethink. It makes it sick. It makes your body sick. It makes your mind sick. It makes your heart sick. It makes everything sick. But it requires courage to see the truth and embody it and live it, right? So cognitive dissonance is a psychological tactic that is extremely harmful, but it is part of our curated reality. As a matter of fact, most people in the Matrix live with cognitive dissonance. They, for example, I'll give you a typical example. They know for a fact that the vast majority of their political leaders are utterly corrupt. Yet at the same time, they believe that the vast majority of those political leaders will do the right thing for them. Those are two absolutely contradictory beliefs. Completely. They don't go together, but that's how most people view it. They know that the cheap imitation of the food that they're going to eat harms them, but at the same time, they think it's going to nourish them. You want me to go on? There are a million contradictory beliefs, but it's like a split personality. It's like a split psyche. And that's part of the curated reality, is to keep you in a split sense of being, in a split state of being, where you are not authentic and you don't trust your own authenticity. Those are all things in this curated reality that keep us from not just ponder on those bigger questions. Who are we? Why are we here? Where are we going? What is this? What is this about? But they also keep us from sensing, feeling, and discovering the answers to those questions. Because we lose self-respect in this process and we lose trust in ourselves. The more that we hold contradictory beliefs, the more trust we lose in ourselves. It's a big one too. These are all from George Orwell, 1984. Until they become conscious, they will never rebel. And until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. It's, I'm always amazed that if you read these books, A Brave New World, 1984, and a few others, and these were all part of the curriculum, right? Part of the public education program, that it's all in there. It's all in there. It's all there. Until you become conscious, you will never rebel. And until after you have rebelled, you cannot become conscious. I'm just inviting you to ponder on that and where we are in that stage, where we are individually and together. Big one. I used this segment of Kamala Harris for a reason, because it is basically, I don't know if some of you have seen the movie Idiocracy. It is literally like taken out of that movie, and it's like, it's so blatantly in your face. This next quote goes beautifully with listening to that woman. It's a beautiful thing, that destruction of words. The destruction of words. What are we experiencing? The destruction of the language that we have known, the meaning. If you listen to, and you don't have just to listen to young people, I mean, their slang is evolving so fast. The complete inversion of words, right? When sick means good and crazy means good. And basically those are only negative words with specific meanings that are supposed to describe good things or positive experiences or something they like. Just think about that. That is the destruction of words. Don't you see that the whole aim of newspeak is to narrow the range of thought. In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible because there will be no words in which to express it. It's when you can't say man or woman or mother or father. It's where you are scolded and shamed into ignoring the truth before you and speaking the lie to conform. And that's what we've seen over the last years more than ever. It used to be called political correctness and it was sort of optional. Now it's literal insanity and it's mandatory. You know, it's where you have to pretend. You have to pretend that all the things that their mental illnesses produce are actually true. Of course, we're not doing it and you shouldn't be doing it, but this is the cognitive dissonance. This is the destruction of meaning, of language, of history. All of this is part of this curated reality. And if you live even remotely within this society or are having some points of contact, you are getting in touch with it. The idea is not to just talk about it for the sake of talking about it, but to become aware of it. To become aware. And you know, Christine and I are increasingly becoming aware just how insane and twisted and sick a lot of people have become. And literally sick. I mean, they had the life, you know, squeezed out of them. There's a zombie-like state, and there's not a lot of vitality, energy, or intelligence left. And that is part of this curated reality. It's when the masses are so controlling. It's not even the leaders that are so controlling. It's the masses now. Not everybody, but big groups of people that try to pressure other groups of people. And the words are becoming fewer and fewer. The ability to think is becoming ever so small in these masses. And they are the ones who are setting the standard. That's the curated reality. I'm not saying that's reality. That's the curated reality. It's not the real thing. And we're going to get to the point here. Before I read that to you, actually, I want to quickly say that there is sort of a perception that I've been seeing that all manipulation, all reality curation, if you will, only comes from certain places. It might come from these dark organizations, these dark forces, and that it enters our realm through the mainstream media, through politics, through economics, through the school system. And these things are all true. But a lot of people, either because of being unconscious of it or not wanting to see it, don't accept that this infiltration and curation of reality is happening in all areas of life, especially and including the spiritual movements. You know, it's easy for people to see the manipulation in organized religion. That's very easy to see for people because it's been there so long, because there's so much study on it, because there's enough history, right? It's hard for anyone to sell the Roman Catholic Church today when it has done so much harm all over the place. And when we don't have to look far into history, we can stay in the present day and look at how much harm it is still doing institutionally in an organized way. How it is treating children, abusing them, just an example. So it's not hard to see that. It's not hard to see those tendencies in quite a few of the organized religions, maybe even all. But a lot of people give a free pass to the newer or newly discovered spiritual movements, the quote unquote new age spiritual movement. And I found a really, really good article on a website. It's called I think lonerwolf.com. I want to read a section to you that I thought was very, very well done. So this is written by Alethea Luna on lonerwolf.com. As sparkly, cosmic, and feel good as New Age spirituality is, it's also undeniable a form of escapism. Why is that bad? You might instantly wonder. Reality is full of terrible horrors. Yes, it's true that reality can sometimes be hard to deal with. Government corruption, social media fake news, poverty, wars, trauma, racism, sexism, environmental destruction, and more recently, a world pandemic can overwhelm us. Some people may need the New Age movement to help them get a handle of their mental health, and that's totally understandable. I've been there too. And yet, if we stay within the New Age with its emphasis on everything that is out of this world, spiritual ascension, higher vibration, higher self, 5D, Pleiadians, aliens, we ignore the need to face this human experience. We spiritually bypass the uncomfortable reality around us and become addicted only to that which gives us a spiritual high. This focus on anything that is blissful, transcendent, and full of light isn't progressive. It's regressive. It's infantile spirituality. Furthermore, the spiritual path isn't all about love and light. Excuse me. It is also about darkness, pain, ego, death, and awkward transformation as well. If you truly want to follow your bliss, you're going to have to deal with some ugly situations, feelings, and tendencies within you and others. And that's a fact of life. I think that's really largely, and it's part of a bigger article on lonerwolf.com. I think that was really pretty well written, actually, and very accurate, which brings me to another part of curated reality, probably, thank you, Charlotte, probably the most destructive one in my view, because it comes so well packaged, which is exactly what she mentioned is spiritual bypassing, which is spiritual bypassing is literally when people are on the path of truth and then they take the exit before the exit. They take the small exit and they try to use what they learn from spiritual disciplines to distract themselves from whatever needs to be seen in their life, from whatever needs to be experienced. So thank you, Melody. Really appreciate it. So what that means is that people will take, it's like the McDonald's version of spirituality. I think they called it Mech spirituality on there. It's like people will study a teaching and then they will pull out 3 sentences that really, really feel good, and they will use them to distract themselves from some pain that they feel inside or some discrepancy in their life or challenge, rather than facing that and trying to figure out what it actually is, what that challenge represents, and how to actually transform it, right? So that bypassing can feel like I'm doing really well. I'm always choosing the better feeling thought. I'm always choosing the highest vibration. I'm ignoring everything yucky and negative, which is, it's a childish and a very immature way to look at things. Don't get me wrong, I understand it, because when life becomes very, very challenging, then you need sometimes tactics to pull yourself out. That is very, very true, and that is very useful. But when a tactic becomes a way of life, or when a temporary tool becomes a way of life, it becomes very destructive. So honestly, Christine and I were most surprised by by how gullible people have become within this spiritual movement, and how they have lost all self-respect for their ability to see truth and accept it and deal with it. This has been part really of the mission here, is to absolutely unpack that and show how this is a highly organized, infiltrated by dark forces, a highly organized field. And we've studied this field now because we have access to some of the most prolific publishers in this field. We have access to their work methods. We have access to their belief systems and how they function. It is no different. It is no different than any dark forces would function. Truth doesn't matter. The only truth that matters is the one that sells books and the one that keeps people coming back for more. It's not a truth that empowers people. It's not a truth that liberates them, and especially not a truth that allows them to transcend this matrix. So I want to go back to the origins of where we started with this. Hold on. Here we go. I have to actually go back here. Where do we start here? The big questions, remember? Who are we? Why are we here? What is this reality? Where do we come from? And what is the meaning of life? These are the questions. And without our unquenchable thirst and desire to discover the answers, there is no hopeful future for us. Because nobody in the matrix wants to answer these questions. Or even worse, they think that science, Darwinism, evolution theory, Big Bang theory, whatever, has already settled those questions. As ludicrous as these theories are, as insane, as illogical as they are, like somebody said, if the evolutionary theory was true, and that random mutation from a single cell amoeba to what we are were true, just by using probability, which is part of the evolutionary theory, by the way, just by using probability, it would have taken the entire time between what they calculated when the Big Bang happened until now to form a single protein using the probability of all things from a single cell amoeba to that protein. That's how long it would have taken to form a protein, not all of life that we see here, just a protein. So, I mean, but who's counting? So most people either don't ask these questions, or when these questions are asked, they look at religion, they look at science, at philosophy, established and mainstream philosophy, to answer them, but not to answer them on a spirit level, to answer the nagging rebels that keep pestering them. Because these nagging rebels don't understand that that's not what life's about. Life's about roller coasters and burgers and vacations and a better job and all those things. That's what life's about. But most of you have passed that point of no return where you can't pretend that that's what life's all about. Now, you surely can accept that it's part of your current experience and you give it the necessary attention, sure. But you know that you've come here at this moment in time specifically to go all the way. And by going all the way, you help and support those who wish to do the same, to do it. Because it is part of a much, 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 much bigger picture. We all know on some level, some of us know it on all levels, but at least on some levels, we all know that whether we are successful in what we do here or not, will have huge impact on all that is. And we could sum it up that the most important thing that can happen here in this matrix is the liberation of consciousness. The liberation of consciousness. Now, you can't set someone else's consciousness free, but you can show the way by freeing your own. Not just your mind, not just your thoughts, but your consciousness, which is that which isn't supposed to just stay here in this realm. It is supposed to transcend the realms. It is supposed to move further out. It is supposed to be much more expanded than it is now. But once it is, it can never be controlled again. And it cannot be used and abused again. So the liberation of consciousness, the raising of our consciousness is the key issue, without which we cannot comprehend what's really happening here and cannot really see it. It's like, have you ever looked at something and it was so close to your eye that you couldn't identify what it is? You just couldn't make it out, but then you went further away, and the further away you went, what about like crop circles? You have to go really far out. Once you're really far out, what happens? You see the structure, you see the proportions, you see the deeper message, you see all of those things. And this is how consciousness operates. Once it rises and expands, it can actually grasp and inform you in this avatar what you're actually a part of. And so we're having this tremendous task to not simply reject, but more importantly, question all those almost infinite belief systems that we're being presented with. And we can't go through all of them. We have to see the pattern at some point. The pattern is that they're slapping belief systems onto you over and over and over again, just in an effort to keep you boxed in and programmed and distracted with those belief systems. And all those identifications that you go through in a lifetime of what you are. You identify with your profession, you identify with your hobbies, you identify with your beliefs, you identify with everything. When these are all experiences that don't need identification. When you are truly, in essence, eternal consciousness. But once that is realized, why would you ever give yourself permission to be controlled again? So that's why the secret has to be forgotten. And we have forgotten the secret as we came here. And we have rediscovered it. Now it is up to us to live it. So the question that's been asked is, how do we fix this system? How do we keep these lunatics from ushering in all their crazy shit? There is no linear answer to that. I can't tell you currently that we can just organize really well and gather a lot of money and have a counter movement. That won't do it. That won't do it. We've slept for too long for that to work. But an expansion of consciousness, a rising of consciousness, now that produces creativity, ideas, and solutions beyond our current understanding. That is exponential. And I would go so far as to say that for one person, one of you, that rises or expands their consciousness to a certain level, and there is an optimal level to still be in this world, but not of this world, and be most beneficial to all that is. It isn't the highest level of consciousness, because when you're above a certain level of consciousness, you don't engage in anything anymore. That's the yogi that sits in the cave and meditates. But when we get there, it counteracts millions of people who are very, very low down on the ladder and don't have any deeper inclinations. So one human being, or one being that expands their consciousness far enough out, counteracts millions of others, their actions, and everything that they do. And that is extremely powerful. That is very, very powerful. So what is keeping consciousness in an expansion mode? Truth. The highest state of being on the scale of consciousness is truth. So when we are on the journey of truth discovery and embodiment of truth, which means for everything that we discover, we must have a period of integration. We must integrate it, make it part of us again, right? Integrating truth. For every truth that we discover and integrate, we rise and we rise and we rise. And the level of ideas and inspiration and knowledge and wisdom that comes to us through that is exponential, which means you can't measure it ahead of time. You can't know how good it will get. So that is the most important thing. And you can't do it by spiritual bypassing. You can't do it by holding two opposing thoughts in your mind at the same time. All of that is hindering you. So that means you have to accept that you are passing this point of no return, that you are becoming so different from the pack that you don't fit in, that they can't relate to you, and that you are more often than not by yourself or in a very small group of people, and that must be okay, and that you can be right and the vast majority of people can be wrong, and that the number doesn't matter. The number doesn't matter. The masses are always wrong. Historically speaking, they're always wrong. It's just a fact of life. Because they don't care. It's just we're dealing with a significant level of NPCs. And that's again a subject for another day, but it's part of this. So what we aim to do, what we are doing, is hopefully inspiring that. And some days it is by simply focusing on the pure expansion. Other days it is necessary to show the imitation game and how perfect it works sometimes, because the imitation of consciousness is currently being infused into society by supposed sentient AI or AGI, artificial general intelligence, and this idea that it is sentient and that it compares itself, or that other humans compare AI to consciousness. It's not true, but the lines begin to become blurred, right? They begin to become blurred. Why? Because and this is sort of, I'm wrapping it up here. It's because the current level, average level of consciousness in a lot of people is still distorted. So how do we know that? How do we discover our consciousness? Well, actually, a good way to look and to analyze our own consciousness is to look at our creations. What are we creating? And you don't have to be an artist. Like, what are you writing down? How are you? Maybe you're decorating something. Maybe you are creating a piece of music. Maybe you do certain work. Maybe you put something into the world. You have a hobby, whatever it is. But looking at your creations and what you focus on, those creations, the manifestations basically of your consciousness, inform you about your level of consciousness. This is why humans have this intense desire to create. It's not just to put stuff into the world and artings and paintings on the wall. It's not just because of that. It's because that's how we inform ourselves about our state of consciousness. It tells us how often. I mean, I'm a songwriter. And I've done some painting. That's never been a big thing for me. But how often have you created something that you were later surprised by? Well, how can you be surprised by it? You created it because you are, by looking at it, discovering an aspect of you that you couldn't see before, or a state of consciousness that you couldn't see before. So we are looking into the world at the current creations, which inform us about the state of consciousness that we're in. And here's the problem. The lines are getting blurred because there's a lot of AI created stuff that mimics our creations. So pulling all that back, going through all the layers in the innermost realm, that is where truth can be discovered, found, and lived. And then when you find that inner compass, spirit again, that's what leads you through life. And that's what confirms to you almost always accurately whether something is truth or not. But it has to be spirit, not chemicals in the body, not dopamine, actual spirit. This is also why over the last years, Christine and I have asked ourselves to question, what are the substances and products and services that are hindering us, and what are those that are supporting us? And that's why when we talk about it, or we have guests on that talk about it, our intention is, does this help and empower human beings to reach a higher level of consciousness? Does it empower that journey or not? So this is how we look at things. As a matter of fact, we even measure the level of consciousness of the people and the products that we, for example, bring on our show and promote, or simply let you know about. This is how important this is. It's all about that. It's all about the LOC, the level of consciousness. And one of the greatest researchers, by the way, that we had the pleasure to really get to know super well over the last year is a man named Clayton Stedman. He's one of the founders of FLFE, and he's actually one of the most prolific consciousness researchers in the world today. Certainly also a student of Dr. David Hawkins. And his millions and millions of calibrations have brought him to a level that I have honestly, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it, where his understanding of levels of consciousness, human consciousness, how it expresses, and his ability to pick that up and to measure that accurately is incredible. So for those of you who have already experienced the FLFE service, let me just tell you this. What you can see and what you can read is a fraction of how incredible this actually is. A year in, and we're still discovering more. It is absolutely unbelievable. And for those of you who don't know it, it's something called FLFE, Focused Life Force Energy, which is a spiritual quantum technology. And you can read all about it in a description of the video, and just check it out, and the science of it all. Rarely in such a short period of time has my own horizon been expanded as much as through the conversations that we've had, simply because they and Clayton is a consciousness researcher, but Clayton and Jeffrey, the founders, the way that they observe, measure, and positively influence our reality and us as humans is absolutely incredible. That's why I've been calling it one of the most important services in the world today, and I mean that. Like I really mean it. Christine and I are just regularly blown away by how awesome this actually is. So, you can click the link in the description to figure out more, or do that free trial, and just explore. At any rate, my friends, I'm gonna have to call it a day here, actually, because I'm on to my next engagement for the day, which is exciting. Frank, Jacob, and I are recording the next iteration of The Naked Truth. The first part of his new webinar has just dropped, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some of the current events and how they fit into the big picture. And just can't wait for you guys to see it in the following days. So that is coming up. And as always, my friends, we're so excited to have you with us on this journey, to ponder on these bigger questions, to have these deep discussions that I can't believe how many people are willing to have now. So thank you for that. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon.
Right now, you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.